In this episode of Building a Layout with Bachmann, we prepare the previously installed EasyTrack for additional detailing, install our backdrop, add tunnels, and build up the landscape around our track layout to prepare for scenery. In our previous episodes, we designed our track layout plan and installed our track and foam scenery base. Now it's time to begin the creative process with detailing our track. Take a look at any real-life railroad, and you'll find that aside from the heads, rails typically don't have a pristine metallic look to them. Most are weathered with dirt and grime that accumulates as the train passes over them. Although not essential for operation on a model railroad, achieving this appearance will be a major step for realism, so we're going to give our track this treatment. There are various methods for doing this, from painting the rails individually, using an airbrush, or spraying with an acrylic rattle can. If you happen to be in a space that can be well ventilated, spraying is the easiest method for fast coverage. To use this method, we're wearing masks, opening all windows and doors, and have 2 fans to draw fresh air through the layout space. If you're constructing your railroad in a basement, we strongly advise that you choose a different method, such as hand painting. It can be tedious, but we promise the results will be worth it. For the main line, we're using a flat dark brown, while for yards and sidings, we're using more of a rust tone, again with a flat finish. When applying colors to your rails, consider the type of track you're applying to, and use prototype photos for reference. If you're spraying your track, you will get overspray on your ties and roadbed. This won't be a problem though, as in our process, the roadbed will eventually be covered with a layer of separate ballast. In the meantime, the overspray will actually help to create variations in color for the ties, creating a pleasing base for future weathering. When it comes to turnouts, you want to ensure that all essential contact points remain clean. You can mask these areas off, but to ensure better control, we're matching the spray colors with craft acrylics and hand painting all turnouts, being careful to keep clear of contact points. These points will remain unpainted to ensure that we don't run into electrical problems. Once the paint is dry across the railroad, the next step is to go over the entire track layout with a rail cleaner, which will remove all paint from the tops of the railheads. This is again an essential step for smooth, uninterrupted operation. When all railheads have been cleaned, it's a good idea to perform a test run to make sure everything is still operating as it should. We're running this train with our track cleaning tank guard to help ensure the rails are completely clear of residue. With the test complete, it's time to prepare for landscaping. The first step for our layout is to install our backdrop. This will not only provide somewhere to apply a sky color to, but will act as a retaining wall for applying the materials to the hills and mountains that will be constructed in front of it. We're using 1/4" MDF, which provides a robust surface to paint the sky onto, while also remaining lightweight. If your railroad has any curves in the benchwork, this will also easily conform to them. For the sky, we're using standard interior paint. Which color you use will depend on what type of weather you want to portray. With the backdrop complete, we can now turn our attention to building up the scenery. Our track plan calls for several tunnels. Tunnels are great for creating interesting scenic breaks and can give the illusion that your trains are traveling further than they are, or perhaps that they're off to somewhere else entirely. Before we begin building the landscape over our tunnels, we're adding interior walls, again utilizing leftover foam board from the base construction. These are fixed down using clear silicone caulk and are painted an earth tone brown to help them blend in once the scenery is completed. Next, we're adding a layer of separate ballast to the interior floors of the tunnels. This step is elective, as the EasyTrack roadbed already features a ballasted appearance, but it will help to increase the overall realism of your scene. We'll eventually cover the entire track layout with ballast, and we'll go into more detail on the process. But for now, we're only adding to the tunnels, before they become less accessible. Before starting on permanent topography to cover your tunnels and other areas, it's a good idea to trace out where your roads, buildings, and other elements will be placed. If you already have the structures completed, you can stage them temporarily on the layout while figuring this out. We actually did this at an earlier stage, but it can be done anytime before you're ready to add contours to your landscape. When staging, it's a good idea to trace the locations of each building, road, and any other feature on your base foam, so you'll know which spots to remain level and free from additional landforming. For roads navigating any changes in elevation, we're using our remaining foam risers left over from the railroad inclines installed in the previous video. Since we don't need to worry as much about gradients, we're also adding foam blocks underneath to make the incline steeper. For areas where we plan to add structures in varying elevations, we're installing foam pads to provide a flat surface for installation. There are various methods for shaping hills and scenery. We're using the tried and tested plaster cloth method over a foam and paper structure. Plaster cloth comes with a dry plaster coating that becomes formable when wet, allowing you to apply it to any surface shape. It will then dry in place and become rock solid, creating a hard shell to apply further scenery. So to create a base for putting your landforming down, just crumple up whatever excess paper you might have. Use as integrity underneath. Then you can use some masking tape on top. Connect from one side of where you want to be to where you want it to end. And just roughly try and make the shape that you want the land to conform to. And then you cut your plastic cloth, dip it in the water, and lay it over the tape without pushing down too hard so it doesn't change the shape that you want, because this will eventually harden to the shape that you're looking to use. It looks messy at first, but this superstructure will provide a good rough base for our plaster cloth to be draped over, and will be entirely hidden when all is said and done. Before applying plaster cloth, consider the shape and contours of your topography. In addition to major hills, we're using the same method for building up the topography between the two levels the trains are running on, filling in the gaps between foam sections, and creating more natural-looking gentle slopes around the layout. The next step is to add the tunnel portals. When installing, it's important to make sure you have plenty of vertical and horizontal clearance, especially if your tunnel begins on a curve. You can use the largest piece of rolling stock on your railroad to help figure this out. We're using our Colorado Railcar Ultradome, which in reality is the longest and tallest passenger railcar in North America. If this can clear the portals, most anything else should be able to run over our railroad with ease. Depending on the topography around your portals, you might also want to add an adjacent retaining wall. We're installing these in certain spots to allow the landscape along the tunnel to flow more naturally to track level. Again, a dab of clear silicone caulk has been used to fix them in place. As the hillside is built up, their overall integrity will be naturally strengthened by the surrounding materials. Once these elements are installed, it's time to fill the spaces and complete the flow of the landscape. Under our girder bridge, we're adding 2 stone abutments, painted and weathered, and are filling in the gaps between the road incline with more plaster cloth. We're also covering the road risers in plaster, but we'll return to these later. With the flow of the landscape completed, the layout is continuing to more closely resemble what we had in mind during planning, and we can now watch as trains disappear and reappear as they navigate the changing elevation and tunnels around the railroad. In the next episode, we'll detail our tracks, add ballast, install our roads, and make other final preparations for our top layer of scenery. See you next time on Building a Layout with Bachmann.